It's Locked On Giants Live. Traina, Tainah, dog, next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon today to get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast. You've got Locked On Giants Live with Traina, Tainah, and coming soon, Dog. I'm going to leave the light on for him. We've got an empty box there for him, but he will be here running a little behind schedule. Papa Guso, I told Dog he has to shave for you, so we'll see if he comes in clean shaven. But anyway, welcome, everybody. Glad to have you with us. Tainah, what's going on, man?
What's going on? Excited. We're finally here. We're not here yet, but free agency's over for the most part. I still think the Giants will probably add maybe one more veteran corner. We'll see. Maybe it'll be White. I think he could make sense. I think they'll add a piece there. But for the most part, we know what the roster is going to look like going into the draft. We've now seen the plan that Joe Schoen has orchestrated to set himself up for the draft. And now we speculate for a month and give our best guesses as to what this team is going to do. But we're all going to find out in about a month.
Yeah, and it's exciting. It's going to be here before we know it. And we're going to, of course, talk about that. We'll talk about some of the free agency movement. Next week, I think, is the owners' meeting. So we'll hear from, we'll probably be hearing from Brian Dable, get an update on some of the players and where things stand with certain players. So there's never any off season. I mean, I love it. There's never any off season. Always something to talk about. I see Vincent. I see Moo in the chat. Caitlin, you're there. Roy, Brian. If I missed any, Scott Young, I see you in there. So again, hello and welcome to everybody. Tainah. All right. So not too much, I think, has really, I think since the last time we had a live stream, some minor signings here and there for depth and whatnot. But, recently I ran an article in which I was grading, or I didn't grade it, but I had one of my writers grade the top moves, the top most significant moves the Giants have made this offseason. I want to get your take on what you think some of the top moves are, including any coaching changes that you feel might be a factor.
Oh, wow. Now that you throw that in, Brasillo might be number one.
Yeah.
we hope at least, right? Bobby Johnson was so bad, you can't get much worse there. So that may actually be number one. I would still have to say Burns is one. I think, and you got to include Shane Bowen in that too, who I'm actually excited about. I think with the pieces that we've added, I think we could have a really good defense next year, because I think with his defense, you have to have a really good pass rush. He runs a very similar strategy to that of Patrick Graham, but Patrick Graham didn't have the pass rushers this guy's going to have. So I'm excited to see about the defense, but you have to start with Brian Burns. Brian Burns, I think, at least in my opinion, was the most impactful move. 25, still in his prime. And you think about what he could do for Kayvon Thibodeau on the other side. That was the signature move this offseason. So that's number one. If we're excluding the coaches, just talking player acquisitions, after that, I think you go John Runyon, young, 25. Although I will say Illuminor, even though he's approaching 30, I like that pickup too because of the guard tackle versatility if Evan Neal's not doing well. But I would slightly lean Runyon. I think he's more of a long-term piece for this team. I would say those were by far the two most impactful signings. And then Brasillo, I think you have to include him in there as well as one of the more impactful moves this offseason. You got to hope he's much better than the guy who he replaced. And the hope I have with him is what he was able to do with the Raiders. When he came in there, they had one of the worst offensive lines in football, didn't have a ton of upgrades in terms of talent, but they were top 10 in the league per PFF the first year that he was there. I think with like 16 or 17 different starting offensive lines due to injuries and shifting players in and out. So, I think that could be a big, big move for the Giants, and we'll see if it translates with the players that we brought in.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, Brasillo, the fact that they hired him so quickly and, those of you who watched the program, I've had guests on who cover the Raiders, and they just speak glowingly about Brasillo, and also Illuminor. When we had him on the call a few days ago, he spoke glowingly of the guy. So, a lot of optimism there. What I found interesting is that, Brasillo believes in cross-training guys. Unless you're a top 5 at your position, you're going to be prepared to cross-train. So you kind of wonder what that means for Evan Neal if he's headed for guard. And I think they're going to cross-train him there. They're going to give him a chance, obviously, to compete for right tackle. But I do think they're going to cross-train him to learn the guard spot, just in case, like you said, he fizzles out at tackle and they say, okay, you know what, maybe he's going to be better off playing next to Andrew Thomas on that left side.
Yeah, I think for sure that, and you actually mentioned that. I don't remember if it was off air or before we did the show or after, but you actually mentioned that was what he was going to do, and you expected the Giants to show that Evan Neal wasn't going to be handed the job, and they were going to have a lot of guys that they were going to bring in that were going to be able to play multiple positions, and that's exactly what they did. I view him as a cheaper alternative than the guy that most Giants fans wanted, which why does the name escape me? The guy that plays on the Patriots.
Onwenu?
Yeah, who had that guard tackle versatility as well. Of course, the Patriots kept him. So I think the Giants viewed him as a cheaper alternative that they didn't have to break the bank for, but he accomplishes the same thing. It puts a little bit of pressure on Evan Neal. If Neal's not playing well to start the year, you have the ability to be able to shift him to the tackle. So I like what they did. They have more options. And as a Giants fan, that's a good thing. There'll be competition in camp. I don't think any jobs are going to be handed to anybody outside of Andrew Thomas and JMS. You got to figure JMS will be the center year 2. But outside of that, I don't think it's a given that Evan Neal is going to be the starting right tackle. I think it's a given he's going to start. Might not be the right tackle. He's going to have to earn it.
And, you look at all the depth that they've added on that offensive line, which goes right what I said, at the beginning of the year. I said, that's a unit that has to hit the ground running. I expected them to really load up on the veterans. They said goodbye to Shane Lemieux. Ben Bredesen left, obviously. They replaced these guys with other veterans. So just as I expected would be the case. Now, one guy I want to talk about, because, this is going to kind of lead into the draft discussions, the addition of Drew Lock. What did you think of that addition?
Yeah, it wasn't who I was expecting. I thought Tainah for a while. I don't even know if Tainah signed yet. Do you know? Has he signed with anybody yet?
I don't think so.
Yeah, which is I know he's a bit older, but I just thought he was a natural backup for Jones. Everybody's always compared Jones to him, similar skill set. But Locke, I think it makes a ton of sense from Locke's perspective, because you're a young quarterback. You're like 25, however old he is, 25, 26, and Jones is coming off the injury. Chances are at some point this year, even if the Giants don't draft a quarterback early in the draft, Daniel Jones is going to be replaced, whether it be due to injury, whether it be due to the Giants later in the year if the team's not playing well, not wanting to risk that injury clause if they're, say, 2-7 or 2-8. And so at some point, if you're Drew Lock, you figure, okay, I'm going to actually get a chance to play here, and I'm going to get a chance to play for a guy that is thought to be a really good offensive play caller in Dable and Kafka. And I have an opportunity. We've seen it in the NFL. All it takes is 4, 5, 6 really good starts. You could get paid off of that. Jimmy Garoppolo got paid off of it with the 49ers. So that's the way I think Drew Lock views it. And I also think Lock is a really good fit. I'm not saying I think he's a starting quarterback. I don't. But I think he's a really good fit in terms of the type of quarterback he is for the type of offense that Dable wants to run. When he was coming out of Missouri, the book on Locke was he was a guy that loved to throw down the field. And I think the Giants want to stretch the field. So I think he's also a good fit in terms of what I think they project that they want out of their long-term quarterback.
Now, what I thought was interesting with the Locke acquisition, they only signed him to 1 year. Now, I don't know if that was because that's what Locke wanted or if that's what the Giants wanted, because you kind of figure, all right, what does that mean for the future at quarterback? Well, obviously, we all know that once Daniel Jones is healthy, and I'm going to bring Dog in here real quick. So let me get him in here, and then we'll continue. Hey, Dog, what's up?
What up? I might pop off camera here and there because I'm still in the middle of eating my dinner. So I don't.
Why don't you go back and finish it? We'll bring you back on when you're done.
Come back in 10 minutes.
Yeah, we're talking.
Yeah, it's fine. It's
you
fine.
Sure? Okay.
Yeah,
all right,
we're good.
So anyway, I was talking about Drew Lock. The fact that they only signed him to 1 year. Now we all know that Shane has said, "Hey, Daniel, the expectation is that Daniel is going to be our starter once he is healthy." So I got to thinking, I'm like, okay, last time they signed a backup quarterback, Tyrod Taylor, for 2 years. Could that mean that the fact that they only signed Drew Lock for 1 year, might that mean that a quarterback is definitely coming at some point in day 1 or day 2? I wonder if that's not a little signal, because look, if Daniel Jones, God forbid, gets hurt again, or he just bombs out, you figure at that point they'll probably make the switch to Drew Lock, because there is that injury guarantee that he has in his contract, and they're going to want to protect themselves, obviously. Otherwise, it's another $12 million on their dead hit the following year. So I just wonder if maybe that's an indication that, yeah, a quarterback is definitely coming either in the first or second round. Thoughts?
Maybe. I honestly haven't thought of it from that angle. Maybe you're right. And we're gonna find out. You said it last stream at the end of the show, I think, when I asked you, what do you think the chances are the Giants draft a quarterback either day 1 or day 2 of this year's draft? And you ended the show with 100%.
Yes, you did.
So
You did.
I'm curious to see if your mind is altered a little bit based off of the conclusion of free agency and what you've seen this team do in the trade with Brian Burns. I personally think it makes it less likely, not saying impossible, but less likely they'll take a quarterback in the second round, for the simple reason we only have 1 second round pick now, and they would add more of an opportunity to trade back up into the first round if they had both. Now there's less of an opportunity. So if you ask me right now, and I'm not saying they wouldn't trade up, I'm just saying it's less likely than it was before. But I think it's more likely they take a quarterback in the first than the second. Right now, that's the way that I feel going into the draft.
Well, but just remember, I mean, we talked about this last night. Minnesota wants to trade up.
Yeah.
Possibility that they trade with the Giants, and there's your quarterback at 23. I mean, that's very possible as well. So who knows? But yeah, Pat, you said 100% they're going quarterback.
Well,
so.
here's what I'm thinking. I'll put this out here for what it's worth. If I'm the Giants, I definitely get a wide receiver 1.
Absolutely.
I would tend to stay with 6 and just get a wide receiver 1, because look, you're not getting Caleb Williams. You're probably not getting Jaden Daniels or Drake May. It looks like you might not get JJ McCarthy unless you trade up. So here's what I would do. I would go receiver at 6, because I think we can all agree a number 1 receiver will do wonders for this offense, regardless of who the quarterback is. And then, Chris, you mentioned, you don't think that the Giants are going to trade up.
Less likely.
But hear me out here. I thought the same thing, but look at what they did in free agency. Can you sit there and say, okay, you know what? They had all these needs. They had offensive line. Well, they've gone heavy this offseason on offensive linemen. They've added, a pass rusher, which was a glaring need. They've added to the running backs room. So now some of these needs that we knew that they had going into free agency, you might be able to cross them off your list and say, okay, you know what? Maybe now we take the receiver at 6, and then we trade our second round pick to get back into the bottom of the first round, where you get a young quarterback who we all know if they take one, he's going to sit behind Jones and Locke for the first year.
At that point in the draft, I agree.
So now you have a guy, a first round pick. You now have him on a rookie deal that includes an option year. I think that just makes too much sense not to do.
It depends who falls. There's no guarantee a quarterback's going to drop to 27, 28, 29 that the Giants are going to feel is worth trading up for either, with all these quarterback hungry teams, right? Like Denver needs a quarterback. They could easily take a Michael Penix or a Bo Nix or whoever, but I get the theory. I always got the theory. It's just a matter of, is there a quarterback there that they like enough to make that move for, with all these quarterback hungry teams. So I'm not ruling it out. I just think it's less likely because after the trading of the pick of 39.
Yeah, they'd probably have to give up a second. Well, depending on how far they traded up, but they'd probably have to give up at least a second next year and probably something else. I don't know if you could just go from 47 to 20. I don't know what that would cost them, but I would imagine at least it's a future second and maybe a future third or something. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to trade. I don't think there's a quarterback worth trading back up into the first round for. I just don't. I don't think that any of those guys are gonna fall that far because, like Chris said, there's so many teams that want a quarterback. The Raiders could use a quarterback. The Falcons could use a quarterback. The Broncos need a quarterback. Everybody needs a quarterback. The Giants need a quarterback. So, unlike the running back position where it's high supply, low demand, quarterback position is a complete opposite. It's very high demand and low supply. There's just not enough to go around. So, everybody wants that franchise change of quarterback, and people are going to do whatever they got to do to get it. Me personally, do not trade up to get J.J. McCarthy. That'll piss me off very much. If Drake May gets by the Patriots, however, Joe Shea needs to call Arizona and say, what do you need? Because that guy, I can understand trading up for him. I can't understand trading up for McCarthy. If you trade a 4, you better be taking Marvin Harrison Jr. if those 3 quarterbacks are gone. But I'm the advocate of, listen, you're picking 6, just take the best player available. It's going to be one of those quarterbacks or one of the 3 best receivers. Just stay there unless something blows you out of the, unless, like I said, Drake May falls past the Patriots or somebody blows you away with a trade deal. I think the number 1 receiver is a big need for the Giants and has been since Beckham left.
Absolutely. Now, let me ask you this. But I'm confident they're going to take a quarterback at some point. Mm-hmm. What if it's a true developmental guy like a Milton, for example? Mm-hmm. How would you guys feel about that? Would you be
that's what I've said all along, Patty, that I'm leaning is going to happen. I do not think we're going to quarterback day 1 or day 2. I think we're going to go a quarterback day 3, and I think it'll be a quarterback like Milton. That's my prediction going. I don't know if it'll be him, but a developmental guy that worst case scenario ends up being a long-term backup. Or maybe Dable could morph him into something. There's no pressure. You view him as a complete project going into this year. If Jones gets hurt or struggles, you have the guy that could man the fort for the rest of this year now in Drew Lock. That's my prediction going into the draft. That's where I'm leaning this is headed because the way I look at the McCarthy thing, and I don't doubt that the Giants like McCarthy. I think they do. I think McCarthy is a really good skill set. I think McCarthy is going to be viewed by the Giants as a guy that would handle New York very well in terms of his personality. He's very likable. He's very coachable. I do think they like J.J. McCarthy, but I think Minnesota likes him a little bit more. From everything that you've heard, they're going to have a private workout with the guy. They traded up for the 23rd pick. I think they're going to be the team that moves up and jumps up and gets him. So at that point, I just don't think we're going to take a quarterback in the first round. And I'm leaning at this point, if I had to guess, we're not taking a quarterback in the second round. So at that point, I think you go for that type of quarterback day 3, that developmental, maybe a guy with some high upside. A guy like Milton makes a lot of sense in round 4, round 5. That's where my head's at going into the draft.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be quarterback in round 1. I'm sticking with receiver. And I told you guys before that, coming in to the combine, before the combine, I said, okay, I'm going with receiver and I'm sticking with that until I get evidence to the contrary to move me off of that. I don't believe the smoke screens about, the Giants are thinking about moving up. I think they have inquired. I think they've looked into every avenue, including moving down. But at the end of the day, I don't know that it makes sense for them to move out of that number 6 spots because you can get a very good player. Now, I know some of you are going to say, well, scared money don't make money. I get all that. But you know what? Get a number 1 receiver. Last year, if you remember, I kept banging the drum for a center. I kept saying, look, you just committed $160 million, 4 years to Daniel Jones, and you have a revolving door at center. Get a center that he can grow old with. Yeah. And they did. I feel the same way now about receiver. Get a number 1 receiver. The receiver group they have now is not a bad group. But just think what a number 1 receiver will do for this group, how it will elevate everything, how it will open up things for the offense, make it more explosive. Just regardless of who the quarterback is, you have a guy like a Roma Dunze, who, by the way, I absolutely love at number 6. I don't know how you guys feel about him, but if you get a guy like that who was it? It was Damian Parson on the show that was on my show. He called him a zip code. You put the ball in his zip code, he's going to come down with it. And oh, by the way, I love the guy's contested catch ability. He's got like a 75% contested catch ability. He's everything Kenny Golladay was supposed to be, and then some.
It's like you watched a show last night, Patty, because I love Romo Dunze. He's my guy. And I mentioned the Kenny Galladay thing, because that is what Kenny Galladay was supposed to be, a tall physical receiver that went up and made contested catches. He didn't do it. Rome Odunze's comp, again, you can take comps with a grain of salt, but to be compared with Devontae Adams and Larry Fitzgerald, those are two pretty good guys. Okay, he's not a burner. I mean, he's not Jalen Hyatt. Okay, he's not Xavier Worthy, but he runs a 4.4. That's not slow. It's not. But
That's fast. That's fast.
It's average this day and age, it seems.
Faster than me.
But again, yeah, right. Faster than a lot. Faster than CeeDee Lamb. Well, are you going to tell me you don't want CeeDee Lamb because he ran a 4.52? There's more to a wide receiver than speed. You know, that's a bonus, in my opinion. But I'd rather have a guy that runs clean routes, that makes contested catches, that has that catch radius, that is physical after the catch. He's hard to bring down. He gets those yak yards. Not to mention, I love the fact that he stayed afterwards to work on the cone drill because
dedication.
He kind of messed it up. It's work ethic. That speaks a lot to me. Both him and Michael Penix. Michael Penix took an extra throw because he messed up. So it tells me they were coached well at Washington. And again, if they took Malik Neighbors, I know a lot of Giants fans like Malik Neighbors. I get it. I ain't going to be mad at that either. I'm not going to be like, oh, they should have taken Odunze. I will be happy with either one of those guys. I just prefer Odunze to Neighbors.
Yeah.
I may have to watch you guys on draft night to see your reactions.
You're not going to be alone.
If they go wide receiver, Patty, we're going to be very happy.
If they go JJ McCarthy, well.
If they go McCarthy, I think Dog is probably going to go.
I would be okay with it. Bad Dog may differ on McCarthy. I've liked McCarthy all along. Bad Dog is not. He would flip. I would be like, all right, I could roll with that. But I want.
I don't know if I'd flip, but I wouldn't. I would not be.
Not Daniel Jones type of flip. Right?
No, you'll never get that again. That will never happen again. That was a perfect storm. But
oh my goodness,
I won't be happy. And again, it's not because I don't think McCarthy can be something. It's not because I don't think he has potential. The difference between him and Daniel Jones is McCarthy is very highly recruited. He's a good prospect. Daniel Jones was not. McCarthy was carried. He didn't need to do anything there. So I worry. Can he? Because we're not Washington. We don't have an elite defense. We don't have an elite offensive line. We don't have an elite running game. And we don't even have Barkley anymore. So can he come in and make this team good? Or is he going to be terrible under pressure? Because he can't get rid of the ball quick enough or he's getting sacked. I just don't know. I didn't see him. He didn't have to do it there. These other quarterbacks, you saw their skill. So you saw them bring especially Caleb Williams, which we're not getting. But you saw Caleb Williams having to score 50 points every game to win because their defense was terrible.
And
everybody knew they were throwing the ball.
The other thing I'll add to this, Bad Dog, is if we were in the Vikings position, I would feel completely different on this.
I agree.
I would be open to trading up to get J.J. McCarthy, who I like.
I agree, because the
Vikings on their team have 3 weapons better than any weapon on ours.
Yep,
they have T.J. Hockenson, they have Jordan Addison, and they have the best wide receiver in football in Justin Jefferson. Yep. We don't have that.
Right.
So if I was the Vikings, I'd be thinking in a similar fashion too. We just lost Kirk Cousins. I think McCarthy, with what we have, could be really good.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's go up and get this guy. The Giants are not even close to having what the Minnesota Vikings have on their team right now. It's not even close. So it's why and if you take McCarthy that early, this fantasy that people have that you're going to be able to just sit him on the bench for a whole year, if you trade up to 4 or 5 to get him or stay at 6 and take him, it's not happening. The guy's going to start by week 5 or 6 if the team's struggling. That's the nature of the beast if you take a quarterback that early on a bad team. So for me, I even though I like McCarthy, he's not nearly as good of a prospect as Odunze, as Neighbors, as Marvin Harrison Jr., and I look at it like, and while I acknowledge that quarterback is the most important position, it's not even close. And if you love a quarterback, you should always take one. The way I look at it is, I like McCarthy, and if Joe Shane feels in a similar way that I do, you could get J.J. McCarthy's in most drafts. You can't get Marvin Harrison Jr.'s in most drafts. You can't get those guys are special players. And I wouldn't be ecstatic passing up on a guy that I think is going to be a really special player for a guy that could be very good. But in our situation, I would be skeptical of it. I wouldn't love the pick.
Yeah, that's my issue is there's
Well,
just too many questions that comes to JJ McCarthy.
let me
'Cause
ask you this, guys, because obviously Shane is looking, at all possibilities, trade up, trade
yeah,
down. At the beginning, I would have said no way they're trading up because they have too many needs, but they have addressed a lot of needs. Would you be comfortable if Shane, say, fell flume in love with, I don't know, Drake May, for example, and he said, okay, I've got to trade up to get him. Would you be comfortable with them doing that?
I guess it depends on what he has to give up, but I definitely like Drake May more than I do JJ McCarthy. I do. I think his size is better. Chris mentioned before, he may not turn into Josh Allen, but he's got that type of body. He's got that type of physicality. He's got that type of skill set. We all know what Shane and Dable did with Josh Allen. I can trade up for that. But
Yeah.
McCarthy, it's just too many questions.
Yeah, that I would trade up for Drake May. And I understand I just said all the things that I said about our supporting cast. But when you have a quarterback who I personally feel is potentially very special, I think he has the potential to be very special. I don't see that with McCarthy. If I saw that with McCarthy, I would be like, let's do it. Let's move
Right.
up to 4. I think McCarthy could be very good. I really do. I think he could be very good. But I don't think he has elite potential. A guy like Drake May, I think, does. And if you have that opportunity to get him, yeah, I think you get him. You get him when you can at the most important position, a guy that could potentially be top 5 at the position long term, and you figure out the rest as you go.
I guess for me, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Chris. I didn't
No,
mean
that's basically where I feel
Does
about it.
I
it
get-
bother? I'm sorry.
I
Does it
was just
bother
gonna-
you guys that McCarthy hasn't thrown the ball as much as the other prospects? I know
Yes.
I asked that of Charles Davis on Thursday's show, but I want to get your take on that.
Absolutely. That's my biggest hangup is he didn't have to do anything. He had 4 total touchdowns in the last 7 games, and they won a championship. He was 10 for 18 for 140 yards against a below average Washington defense. And if you watch a championship game, it was like he turned and handed the ball off the first 3 runs. Like it ended up being like 190 yards and 3 touchdowns. He didn't have to do anything. They didn't put it on his shoulders to go out and beat this team. He didn't have to because the surrounding parts were so much better than whatever. They did not depend on him. It did not fall on him like it did those other 3 quarterbacks. Like if they were going to win, it was dependent on them. I guess what I was going to say to Chris, with McCarthy, I see nice traits. I see potential. He doesn't wow me. Those other 3 quarterbacks, Caleb has wowed me for years. Drake May has made some wow plays. I mean, Drake May's it was definitely Caleb Williams, and then everybody else was a 4 step back.
I agree with that.
But Jaden Daniels, same thing. They make plays and make it like, wow. Like, I don't get that from McCarthy. So it could be what I see. Maybe he does end up being the guy. He might end up being the best quarterback in the draft, but I think a lot has to do with the coaching. I think a lot has to do with the situation he goes into. And again, for me, it's just too many questions. The Giants do not have the talent that Michigan does. Michigan was better than every team in college football. The Giants are not better than many teams in the NFL. So, it's just it'd be a major risk in my opinion. I don't want to take that risk at 6.
You mentioned risk. I mean, I get that the Giants want to give Daniel Jones another chance, but that injury history of his, and given how he plays, I mean, I guess maybe the Giants said to themselves, all right, if God forbid this kid gets hurt again, if we have to eat another $12 million next year, so be it, but we want to give him another chance. I mean, am I the only one who's just not comfortable with this whole thing? I mean, I know they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, but I just can't help but wonder about it. And the is it the smart thing to do? I guess it is, because you don't want to toss the guy to the side, because who knows, maybe he can be the guy that we saw in 2022. And if he is the guy that we saw in 2022, is that good enough, do you think, to win, and advance in the playoffs? We saw it in 2022, but is that really good enough for him to go against the better teams? Because let's face it, the Vikings in the playoffs, can we agree they weren't, a really good team, that they were kind of a smoke and mirrors team?
A solid team, but they certainly weren't near what their record indicated, and their defense wasn't good. But yeah, what I'll say about I get everything that you're saying, and a lot of people have brought up this point, and maybe the Giants will do that. I don't think that's going to be the case, especially if they don't draft the quarterback early. Um, if Jones is ready to play, I think he's going to play, but I do think they will have a short leash with Daniel Jones, due in part to that. If the team is 2-6 and Jones isn't playing well, I think there's an incentive to bench him for the exact reason that you said. But I just can't picture the Giants going into the year. If they don't draft a quarterback in this year's draft early, I can't picture them going, if Jones is completely healthy in training camp and he looks good in training camp, I can't picture the Giants going into the year with Drew Lock as the starting quarterback. I don't think that would go over well in that locker room either. That's just my personal opinion. So you gave him the contract. I get it. Now Bad Dog and me actually were talking about this last night on the show. What is the exact specifics of the injury clause of that contract? It has to be like, from what I read, I think it was on Duggan's post, it has to be like a season-ending injury, right? It has to be like a torn ACL.
I have the info. Wait, hold on. Let me see if I can find it up. Find it on here because I took it. Let me see. Where is it? Just bear with me. I know I put it on my phone. Okay, where are you? Where are you? My understanding. Okay, is this it? I'm looking for the exact language here. Okay, so it's a $12 million injury risk unless he suffers a season-ending injury. So the understanding that I have is that he has to clear a physical. All right. If he clears a physical by the start of the season, this is a quote I'm reading from somebody that I asked about this. Yeah. Quote, if he clears a physical by the start of the season, they're good on the injury guarantee, except for being on the hook for the $12 million guarantee that kicks in on the 5th day of the league year next year. So it's a $12 million risk unless he suffers a career-ending injury.
Okay.
All right. So it boils down to, can he pass a physical? So, that's the risk that they run with him. It's, to me, it's very dicey, the whole thing. It's just, because look, if he suffers a season-ending injury and he has to retire, then obviously they get off the hook. But if it's something that he can come back from, that's another story. So that's how it was explained to me.
Yeah, and maybe I'll be right. And I saw Barb said you start Lock and then until McCarthy is ready. Well, I wasn't talking under that circumstance. I don't think we're taking McCarthy. If we took McCarthy, I probably would do that. Based off the injury circumstances with Daniel Jones. But if we don't take an early quarterback, which I think we both agree they're not going to do, at least in the first round, the way that you're talking, I do think Daniel Jones, if he's healthy enough to play, is going to start the year at quarterback. Joe Schoen has all but said that. So that's my expectation. Maybe that won't be the case. And maybe the Giants, or I don't know, we'll see. But I think he will start the year at quarterback if we don't draft the first round quarterback.
I do think that look, I've made this comparison before about quarterback. I do think the Giants are drafting a quarterback. It's kind of like, okay, you go to a store, and I'll use this example because my husband's notorious for doing this. So we'll go to like a Sam's Club or a BJ's Wholesale, and there'll be something on the shelf that he'll see, and he'll be like, oh, should I get this or should I come back for it? And he'll take it, he'll put it in the cart, and then he'll think about it. He'll put it back on the shelf, put it back in the cart. And I said to him, just take it because you don't know if it's going to be there next time we come. Well, it's kind of the same thing with the quarterbacks, If you need a quarterback and there's, let's face it, I think this team could use a quarterback, get one, get the right guy. I'm not saying force a pick, get the right guy, because next year you don't know, A, where you're going to be drafting, B, the quarterback class might not be as good as it is this year. So why hesitate?
If you really like one, I agree with that. The question is going to be, do they really, really like one?
And that's important.
Yeah.
Because there's no guarantee with quarterbacks. You look at, I think it was Paul Dottino did a study 48% of the quarterbacks picked in the first round, I think, went on to Pro Bowl. Although, quite honestly, as far as I'm concerned,
That
Pro Bowl
means
is not the
nothing,
metric that I would use.
Yeah, that's
I
nothing.
would have used All Pro or
All
Hall
Pro,
of Fame
yeah.
or something like that, or even Super Bowl winner. But I get the gist of what he was talking about. He's saying there's just as many busts in the first round as there are hits. So you have to be all in, and it's just it's a tough position to evaluate. And I asked Charles Davis on my show that on Thursday, guys, check it out if you haven't already done so. I asked Charles Davis, I said, why is quarterback so hard to evaluate? And, he gave me a whole list of different reasons why, from, the system. Now you're playing with different guys. Sometimes, it's the environment, but he mentioned specifically, you have to put the right guy in the right system. There are times when you take a quarterback that succeeded in one system, maybe in college. Now you put him in a different system in the pro, thinking that, oh, well, he can make all the throws and he can read defenses and he can do that. But all of a sudden now, maybe he's not good with timing, or he's not good with RPOs, or whatever the case may be. So that's why a lot of times you see quarterbacks that are highly touted come out, and now all of a sudden, guess what? They're not, what we thought they would be.
Yeah. I think a quarterback, more than any other position, obviously the really special ones are going to be successful almost no matter what. Like when I say that, I mean the Pat Mahomeses of the world. But even Pat Mahomes had an ideal circumstance. He had as good of a circumstance as you could hope for. He would be successful.
What I think the Giants want for that's what they want to do. And
Yeah.
I've been screaming about this. Get the offensive line up to snuff. Get a number one receiver in here. They're going to go with a committee, but for running back.
Yeah.
Take care of all the things you need for that quarterback to step in and be successful. Because let's face it, guys, whether you love Daniel Jones or you hate him, when he came into this team, things around him were not solid. The offensive line was shaky. All he really had was Saquon at the time. They had just traded away Odell Beckham Jr. and saddled him with Golden Tate and some other, receivers who really weren't cutting it. Give the kid a chance to succeed. And to that degree, I feel for Daniel Jones, because he really never had the chance, a strong supporting cast around him. So in that regard, yes. But, that's not to say that I don't think they should move on from him, but I'm trying to be fair to the guy.
Yeah. I don't want them to do to the next quarterback what they did to him. And that's a big worry for me. If you reach on a quarterback and you put him in the situation we currently have, that's a big worry for me. And obviously I'm going to roll with it no matter what they do. I'm a Giants fan, and I could understand it from Shane's perspective too, because at the end of the day, Shane's got to think about what gives him the best chance to keep his job and be able to get the time that he feels is necessary to get this team to where they should be. And I could see him convincing himself that a quarterback does do that. So I get it. I do. But it's a risk. And I think if you want to take J.J. McCarthy at this point, not only are you going to be taking him higher than I would feel comfortable, you're probably going to have to trade up to do it. And that's a big gamble, guys. That's a big gamble that I don't feel completely comfortable with.
Right. If we miss again, I mean, it's come full circle at this point. If they take McCarthy and they don't build around McCarthy, then he can't elevate the team, because it came from a team that had everything and we don't have anything. 2029, we're right back where we started. We're going to be in this situation again in 5 years. When they drafted Daniel Jones, Chris and I said before they drafted him, you miss on a quarterback, it sets your franchise back 5 years.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it did. So as much as Daniel Jones worries me with the injury situation, with the inability to process quick enough, I mean, we know what he is after 5 years. There's no surprises here. So, but at the same token, you can't just take a quarterback to take a quarterback and put him in a crappy situation either. So if the Giants are not in full bloom love with J.J. McCarthy and there's any doubt about maybe we should go wide receiver, then you don't take the quarterback. Yeah. You have to be 150%. Yep, that's my guy. I want that guy. Do whatever I got to get together. He's the guy. He's the Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
You got to feel like that. Like Chris said, if you're drafting that high, you're thinking this guy is an all-pro, an elite quarterback, a guy that should end up in the Hall of Fame. That's where you draft these guys, as quarterbacks. So if you're thinking, maybe we can get him and he can be above average, That's not exactly what you want to strive for when you're picking sixth overall. So
What do you guys think about Spencer Rattler as a prospective quarterback prospect?
I like him. I think he's better than Bo Nix, personally.
Really?
Yeah,
Do you think he's a fit for what Dable does?
I think that they could develop Rattler. I've said before, I would be more comfortable taking Spencer Rattler at 47 than I would McCarthy at 6, because I think Spencer Rattler has a lot of really good tools. But I think he needs to be developed. But I do think Spencer Rattler is a pretty good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback by any stretch of imagination. I don't think he's a first-round quarterback. But I do think a guy like Brian Dable could certainly, make him into a very good quarterback. But that was like a hot take I had before all this started going. I put on Twitter, I said, who do you think goes before like a lot of people think they will? And Spencer Rattler was my guy. I feel like Spencer Rattler is going to go a lot higher than people think he is. I'm not in love with Spencer Rattler, but I like him. I think there's something there. So I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Yeah. I actually don't like Spencer Rattler, but I would like taking him more at 47 than McCarthy at 6.
Yeah.
Because there's no financial commitment there. Right. And if he works out, great. You got a bargain. If he doesn't, he's a backup. You're paying him nothing anyways as the 47th overall pick. So I do see he has some traits. He was a very highly thought of college quarterback coming in. I'm not a big fan of him. There were tons of reports of him in high school that his teammates hated him. He did not work out at Oklahoma, which is a quarterback's heaven.
Oh, that's because Caleb Williams took over for him.
Caleb Williams, yeah. I get the tools, but I'm not a Rattler fan. But if they took him at 47, I'm not going to scream. They feel he's a guy that they could potentially groom into something, and there's very little risk there. So I would be okay with it, but I probably wouldn't want him at 47.
He's inconsistent. I mean, that's his big thing. You see flashes of a guy that can be really good. Look at the game against Alabama this past year, where he threw for like 450 yards and 5 touchdowns or whatever. I mean, they crushed Alabama. Was that last year? I forgot what the hell year that was that he did that. I thought that was last year, but I could be wrong. But again, you saw it at Oklahoma. I mean, the year that Caleb Williams took over for him, Spencer Rattler went in as a Heisman favorite, but he didn't get off to a good start. He was turning the ball over. They are losing to their biggest rival, Texas, and they said, all right, well, let's try the freshman. And Caleb Williams came in, and they came back, and that was it. That was it. Spencer Rattler, and then he hit the transfer portal, ended up in South Carolina. He knew he wasn't getting a starting job back because he ain't Caleb Williams. There is no Caleb Williams in this draft. There's rarely ever a Caleb Williams in any draft, in my opinion. So that was a part of the reason he didn't work out at Oklahoma. But again, I think he's inconsistent, but I think there's things to work with. So
there's tools.
I would be upset with
there's tools.
We did an article over on well, actually, I can't take total credit for it, but over on Giants Country, we found an article that I think the 3013 did, and they picked out different qualities that you would want to have in your prototypical quarterback. And I know Joe Milton. I think his size, was mentioned. I think Joe Milton's a big guy, right? He's like I'm just trying to remember his size, but there was Milton's size, and I think you had Drake May's. I think it was his athleticism. There were different features, and it was an interesting study to see. And then we were trying to apply the different characteristics to what would be successful for the Giants. And a guy whose name kind of came up when we were doing the analysis of this analysis was Pratt, who hasn't been mentioned a whole lot with regards to the Giants. I mean, what do you guys think of Michael Pratt?
I've watched a little bit on him because a lot of people were mocking him a few months ago to the Giants in day 3. I've watched some highlights on him. I haven't watched a ton of Tulane football like in live games, so but I have heard a lot of people have said they feel he would be an ideal fit for the Giants in day 3. I'm fine if that's their guy. I actually want them to take a day 3 quarterback. So if that's their guy, that's their guy. If they feel he's a good fit, but yeah, he's been a popular name that I've seen thrown about as a potential target for the Giants if they want to go quarterback in that round 4 or 5 area. So I don't know enough about him. I've watched a couple of highlight tapes. I haven't watched a ton of them.
Yeah, I can't tell you that I watched any Tulane game. I don't really watch the American Conference. There's really no good teams there. So my focus usually is the SEC and the Big 12. This year, I kind of went away from the Big 12 because I don't really care for it too much, especially since, Caleb Williams went to the the Pac-12, and the Pac-12 was extremely competitive. And as far as the Big Ten one, it was really just Michigan. I like Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. Those were fun to watch. But the conferences that I usually focus on are the Big 12 and the SEC, because I felt like they were the best conferences. But like I said, the Pac-12 was fantastic. I mean, look at the quarterbacks that are coming out of the Pac-12. You have Caleb Williams, you have Michael Penix, you have Bo Nix. Cam Ward was also in the Pac-12, but he stayed back and he transferred to Miami now, but part of Washington State. So the Pac-12 was good, but I did not watch anything on Tulane or Pratt, so I have no idea what he is. No clue.
Yeah, I mean, so many names getting thrown out there, but you can sit here and you can overanalyze it till the cows come home, So at the end of the day, guys, I just think receiver 6, quarterback by day 2 at some point, second round ideally, but again, I could see them potentially be, especially if you have guys at the bottom of the first round and the beginning of the second round, where those grades tend to get clustered, where it's like, okay, on some boards, maybe this guy is a low first rounder, or whereas on other boards, he's a low second rounder. There's also, like I said, the advantage of trading up and back into the first round for your quarterback is that you get the guy on the rookie, the option year, especially if your plan is to let him sit, which I believe is what the Giants are going to do. So very good. It's a very interesting conundrum for Joe Schoen. Then you throw in, like I said, the injury history of Daniel Jones. Does that make the position a priority? I don't think it does. I mean, in terms of, Shane's going to stay true to his board, but you look at all the work he's been doing on quarterbacks. He was out at USC, not just for Caleb Williams, by the way. I happen to think he was out there looking at Brendan Rice, amongst others. I know they went out to see JJ McCarthy during his pro day.
I was surprised Shane didn't go to his pro day.
He was supposed to go.
Tierney did, but Shane
he was
didn't.
Supposed to. I heard.
Oh,
so maybe he couldn't get. I don't know if there was a change of plans, but I know it was reported that he was supposed to have gone. And maybe, like I said, maybe they changed it and said, okay, you know what, we'll send Tierney out with Brandon Brown. But yeah, a lot of people, with regards to these visits, a lot of people, they say, oh, wow, Joe Schoen is out in USC. Maybe he's looking at Caleb Williams. There are other people that he's probably looking at besides Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
I think the one game he went to, they played Washington. So Michael Penix was playing in that game as well. And he went to see Drake May a number of times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was surprised he didn't go to the Michigan Pro Day, not exclusively for JJ McCarthy. They have so many really good prospects in this draft. And one guy that I love on Michigan, I would be very happy if the Giants got him at 47. I don't know where he's being mocked. Chris Jenkins. I mean, you pair him with Dexter Lawrence. I've been watching him a bit because he's kind of like a Leonard Williams style player. I think he'd be a good fit for this team. That's a guy I'd love the Giants to get at 47 if he was there. Is Chris Jenkins.
Yeah, who knows? Whenever I've done mock draft, again, you take the simulator for what it's worth, which isn't much.
Yeah.
Every time I did one, because there was one stream I did before free agency, and I did at least a half dozen, 7, 8. Every time I did it, Chris Jenkins was in the third round. And every time I took him. Yeah, 70 every time. A lot of my draft, this is before we traded, obviously, the 39 pick, but a lot of my picks ended up being Cooper Beebe at 47 and Chris Jenkins at 70. I didn't always get a quarterback. Sometimes I ended up taking Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze and then somebody else at 39. But I love Chris Jenkins myself.
I do too. That's a good name to keep an eye on, actually, because that is a sneaky need. That is a sneaky need. I mean, I know they like Jordan Riley. They still like DJ Davidson. They have Rakeem Nunez-Roches, but I'd like to see them get a guy who could maybe has a little pass rush to him, which those guys right now I don't think have. And, we saw the effect Leonard Williams had on Dexter Lawrence's game. And, everybody's like, oh, well, Brian Burns will help with that. Well, yeah, to a degree, but it also helps when you have somebody pushing the pocket, because Dexter's going to take up the space and whatnot. Now you have a guy up front who could maybe slide in a gap or something and penetrate, which would in turn open things up for the guys in the back. I mean,
I think
Why
he's in
wouldn't
play.
you?
I think he's in play at 47. I had a safety in my first mock draft. Could see a corner there too, but I think a D tackle's in play, and I think
I agree.
Chris Jenkins is the type of D tackle that I could really, like you said, a guy that's not, he's not a traditional nose tackle. He's a guy that could also rush the passer. That type of prospect I could see making a lot of sense for this defense. They've clearly prioritized the pass rush. Finish it. Go get that. Go get another piece. We want to get,
Absolutely.
we want to get after the quarterback. So I'm completely open to that.
Right. And plus also remember, I think Raheem Nunes-Roches' contract is up after this year.
Yeah.
Get a young guy in, let him grow and let him grow on with Dexter. Why not? Right.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys, I see a lot of questions popping up. So let's do this. Let's take a commercial break. When we come back, if you've asked a question and we haven't gotten to it, pop it in the chat box. We'll start getting to some of your questions. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. A lot of us spend our lives wishing we had more time. The question is, time for what? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? The best way to squeeze that special thing into your schedule is to know what's important to you and to make it a priority. Therapy can help you find what matters to you so that you can do more of it. And if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and is designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. And if you find your assigned therapist isn't a match, you can switch at any time for no additional charge. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Hey, Giant fans, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel for you on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you all day, every day, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, everybody, welcome back to Locked On Giants Live. Tainah, dog. Draft is less than what? 40 days away? It's about 34, 33 days away.
Yeah.
Tell us that month.
Not going to be during my birthday weekend. Thank you, God. Although I'll probably actually my birthday's on a weekend, I think this weekend, but so that's good. So I won't have to work on that. But so we've been talking draft. We've been talking, the free agency additions and whatnot. We kind of touched on it a little bit at the end of the last segment. And oh, by the way, the questions, I will get to the questions. Jonathan, I see your question there. I'm going to just bookmark it real quick. But first I want to ask the guys, we started talking about guys like Chris Jenkins and whatnot, other sneaky needs that you feel are being overlooked that the Giants will probably look to address in the draft.
Sneaky needs. Well, I like. Let me first start by saying what the obvious, in my opinion, at least, the obvious needs are. I'm not even going to talk about the quarterback because that's always a need when you don't have an elite quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Wide receiver, corner, safety, like secondary in general, like that. Those to me are like the most obvious needs going into the draft. Sneaky needs. I mean, yeah, we talked about the D tackle. I still think that's a need. How about linebacker depth? I think like inside linebacker depth maybe is a sneaky need. Possibly a tight end, being that you're probably going to lose Darren Waller. I could see that being a sneaky need. Yeah, I'll go with those two. If we're talking sneaky, I'll go with a depth inside linebacker. I could see that being a need.
Yeah.
I don't know how much sneakiness there is. We need everything.
We need needs everywhere, bad dog.
We do.
With all the
everything. I mean, I could see the Giants taking a running back in the third or fourth round too. I could see them doing that as well. I mean, Devin Singletary's here for 1 year.
Get a big bruiser, right? Like a Brandon Jacobs type,
right? Whoever that may
which
be.
I would love to see. By the way,
Ray Davis out of Kentucky is a guy like that. Marshawn Lloyd is pretty good as well, which is a guy you could probably get in the fourth round. But I think that the Giants will address that early day 3. And yeah, tight end is definitely something that they could use. We could always use another. We need wide receivers without question. I mean, there's talk about, hey, the Giants could double up on wide receiver, and
I've said
it is,
that.
it is possible, depending on who's there at 47. This is a very deep receiver class, but I could see Cooper Beebe being a guy they take at 47. We always need line depth. Again, sneaky needs or not, I feel like the Giants, after their first pick, should just address. They obviously
we just need good football players.
Yeah, we do. We really do. That's
yeah.
really what we need. But I can see Shane definitely continuing to address the trenches in this draft after that first pick. Definitely, without question.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, safety's another one. Maybe you add some more depth. Cornerback for sure. They've got it, which is going to lead into Jonathan's question here. Jonathan, I haven't heard anything regarding White. I know they met with him, but I believe he was still kind of shopping around his options. But they definitely need cornerback depth as of right now, because I don't think they have a cornerback too. I mean, right now you say, oh, Nick McLeod's probably going to be that guy. Well, Nick McLeod is also one of their best special teams players. And oh, by the way, I was happy that they got McLeod and Darnay Holmes back, because the two of them as gunners last year were just, they were a great duo. Very underrated, but a great duo. But, the concern is that McLeod has to be your cornerback too. Now maybe you can't play him as much on special teams. So hopefully they do address that. And, Tre'Davious Wright was a guy that, they brought in. I think White is shopping, around for the best possible deal. Because I got to think, given his injury history, that maybe the Giants and plus the Giants don't have a lot of money to spend, but maybe it was like a 1 year kind of prove it type of deal, with a little bit extra money, but, basically a 1 year prove it deal. And you would think that White, given his background, maybe wants something a little bit more. So we'll see on that, but
they maneuvered Dexter's contract around, so they gave themselves
that money's going to get eaten up quick. I don't remember I think they have like what, 8 million total and about 2 something.
And the draft's going to be about 6.5.
Yeah. So it's not a whole lot. They're going to have to do Andrew Thomas at some point. And I think they're going to probably do Bobby Okereke at some point as well. Shane only does that, obviously when he needs to. So right now he doesn't need to, which kind of leads into, where did I see the question? Somebody asked me if they were done with free agency. Just about. I mean, there may be 1 or 2 more of like minimum signings, but I don't think they're going to have any more like super big splash deals, like, multi-year deals and stuff like that. So, veteran minimum signings, because they don't fully count against the cap. All right, let's see. JDJ, an everydayer. Love you, JDJ. Thank you. Who do you expect to make the biggest leap from last year's draft class? That's a good question. From last year's draft class, Jalen Hyatt, I would think, didn't really get a whole lot of, snaps. Well, I think I know the reason why he didn't get a lot of snaps, but I think he's the guy that I would look to make the biggest leap. Do you guys agree? I
disagree, but I do like Jalen Hyatt, and I do think he could take a leap this year. I'm actually going to say JMS. I think JMS. I think JMS. At least I'm hoping. We took him really early. He's an older guy, so you kind of expect. He's 25. He's as old as Andrew Thomas, so you kind of expect him to. For me, I at least expect him to take a big jump year too. I'm not saying he's got to be an all-pro center, but I expect him to be a good center in the NFL next year. More consistency. So I'm going to go JMS. I think JMS takes the biggest leap.
Yeah, I think so too. New offensive line coach. I think getting a guy like Runyon, who, again, wasn't the best guard available, but he's incredibly durable. And we've talked about this ad nauseum about how this team just doesn't stay healthy up front. It's hard to get any kind of continuity or chemistry when guys are constantly in and out. An offensive line is supposed to work off of one another. They're supposed to work as a unit. And if you can't get that chemistry, the timing's off. And it showed a lot how confused the blocking was. A lot of these times guys would be coming free off the edge. It's like, who's picking that up? The Giants haven't been able to pick up a stunt in 10 years. So it seems like every time they stunt, someone gets to the quarterback. But I feel like with some stability in that line and a new line coach that I think JMS should take the biggest step forward. I could definitely see Hyatt, especially if the Giants went out and got an Odunze or Neighbors. that they're obviously going to garner a lot of attention, and then maybe Jalen Hyatt can break out. He definitely showed flashes of being a guy that could, but again, he's still got some work to do. But I could see that. I'm interested to see what they do with Eric Gray this year. Obviously, no Saquon Barkley, no Breida. They have Singletary, and again, he's a durable guy. But I do think Gray's going to start to get the ball, more out of the backfield, and hopefully he's not returning kicks this year. They brought Hunter back. So they're not gonna have him returning kicks. But I hope they all take a step forward. Hopefully Trey Hawkins can take a step forward.
You want all of them to take a step forward, but in terms
better.
of biggest one, you're right. JMS on offense, Hyatt, who didn't get a lot of opportunities. And by the way, it was Papa Guzzo who asked about any more free agents being signed. Sorry about that, Papa Guzzo. I knew I saw it. I couldn't remember who it was, so I just want to give Papa Guzzo a shout out for that. So my apologies, Papa Guzzo, for not posting your thing. But yeah. Hyatt is the guy.
I think he wasn't a rookie from last year's class, but I think if he stays healthy, especially if we add one of these receivers we're talking about, Dunze, any of these guys, these upper echelon receivers, I think Wan'Dell's going to have a huge year. I really do.
Question.
I think Wan'Dell's going to have a very, very strong season next year if you get a legitimate number one and they get to use him even more so as a chess piece where the defense can't really lock in on him. He looked great to me last year over the last 4 or 5 games as he really started to recover. I'm excited for Wan'Dell this year. I really am. I think he could have a really nice year for the Giants. Yeah.
Oh, and he's such a good kid. I talked to him a lot last year in the locker room about the knee injury and his growing confidence. And he's so humble. I mean, he's just such, I hope they make him available like on one of those marketing things that they do during the season. I would love to have him on the show. I mean, I think you guys would just absolutely love him because he's so humble and just, he works at it. He wants to be great. And, by the way, even though his locker wasn't by Sterling Shepard's, he tapped into what Sterling Shepard had to say a lot. And some of you might cringe at that, but Sterling Shepard, when it came to, he knew how to be a pro. And Sterling was a great influence on him as well as Jalen Hyatt. So it's nice to see that, the veterans take the young guys under their wing. And then when the veterans go, now the young guys become the veterans, and then they'll take the young guys under their wings. And you just want that tradition that, to continue that, it's kind of like the sourdough starter, where if you keep it and you keep using it, it gets better and better. So you can tell I had sourdough bread earlier today. I love sourdough bread. Especially
There's our food segment. There's our food segment.
From that San Francisco bakery, which if it wasn't so darn expensive, I'd have it shipped out here. It's that good, that sourdough bread. But anyway, all right, Mark W. Is it a done deal that between Evan Neal and Jermaine Illuminar gets the right tackle job and the other will be the right guard? Mark, nothing's a done deal yet because the coaches haven't sat down and worked with these guys yet. They're not allowed to work with them until phase 2 of the offseason program. The offseason program, by the way, starts April 15th, I believe. It's a Monday. So it's that Monday. They'll have 2 weeks of purely strength training. Then I think they're off for the draft, if I'm not mistaken. And then they come back. Phase 2, it'll be, the position coaches will be able to work with guys. So nothing is a done deal right now. Nothing is assumed. I think Carmen Brasillo probably has an idea what he would like to do, but nothing's in stone yet. All right, let's see what else. Oh, here's a good one. Stanley Frederic, what are your thoughts on Rasheen Ali, the running back out of Marshall? Because he could be a sleeper because his skills are close to Barkley. I got to admit, I'm not familiar with him. Are you guys?
No.
Yeah.
No. There was one running back I haven't done. I looked at a couple of his highlights. I can't remember his name. I saw that Jalen Hyatt retweeted him because he went to Tennessee.
Oh, yeah. I think I know who you're talking about.
And he ran like a 4.32 or something. And I was like, that's a guy, man. Yeah, I haven't done enough looking into him, but I saw him. I'm like, I'll have to look more into him. That's one running back I want to look at. I can't remember his name.
Yeah. Stanley, I'll put that on the list of guys to look at. I apologize. I don't have an answer for you, but I'll put that on the guys to look at over on Giants country. What's that?
Might have been. Yeah, it was a Tennessee running back. I know that. So I remember being like, all right, I got to remember this guy. I'm going to look into him more. But Yeah, he run like it was like a ridiculous 40 time.
Yeah. All right. Scott Young asked, do you think Aziz is still a valuable asset or have his injuries finally taken its toll? I think Aziz is going to be a situational pass rusher. And I think that's how they're going to try and get him through the year. I mean, look, I don't know what it is with him. Maybe some guys are just more injury prone than others, possibly. But, I remember talking to him last year during training camp, and he was all excited because he said, oh, I've started a yoga program, a Pilates program, a stretching program. Excuse me. I should be better this year, as far as injuries goes. And then, of course, he goes and he gets injured. So I think now with Brian Burns obviously on board, Aziz is going to be like maybe the number 3 guy. And look, you go back. I say this all the time. You go back and you look at this 2007, 2011 teams. Those teams were 3 deep with pass rushers, at least 3 deep. So there's no shame in that. I mean, the only bad thing for Aziz is that this is his contract year. Obviously, you don't want to lose snaps, but hey, it is what it is, right?
Yeah, listen, you can never have enough talent at that position, period.
Yep.
And I like that the Giants are getting back to that because it's been a long time since we had a depth and multiple quality players at that position. So I think they're going to continue to hammer that home. And I'm with you, man. The more pass rushers you get on this team, the better, especially with our suspect secondary. So I think we're in another pass rusher, whether it comes on the interior or the exterior.
I can see that. Yeah. I can definitely see that.
Yeah, I forgot the guy. I had him mocked in my first mock draft. The guy out of what I think it's Penn State, who the Giants brought in for a top 30 visit.
I know who you're talking about, and the name escapes me.
Yeah,
I saw it too.
Yeah, I think he's a positive. I think they're going to add a pass rusher one of these first 3 picks this year, whether it be on the interior or the exterior. I think they're going to add another one.
Yeah. All right.
Patty, do you think they bring Isaiah Simmons back?
Isaiah Simmons? No, I don't think so. I don't know that. I get the impression he's not a fit for what Bowen wants to do.
No, there's a lot of people ask. That's why I was curious if you.
Yeah, I don't think he's even gotten an offer, to be honest with you. At least not that I'm aware of.
Do you see that New Orleans gave Chase Young 1 year, like whatever it was, $12 million? That's exactly what I wanted the Giants to do. That was exactly what I wanted the Giants. That's okay. I'm very happy with Brian Burns.
Right.
Yeah, I'm very happy with Brian Burns. But that was exactly kind of what I don't know, man. Maybe it's just me. I just feel like Chase Young could still be really good. Maybe it's me. Maybe he can't. Maybe his work ethic sucks. Maybe his attitude sucks. Maybe he'll never be anything. But I don't know. I feel like in the right situation, that guy could be. And everyone's like, oh, if he couldn't really perform in San Francisco with Nick Bosa on their side, and I get that. But when you change teams in the middle of the year and you have to learn a whole new system,
he looked good in the Super. He looked good in the Super Bowl. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I think he had 2 sacks in the Super Bowl.
I would have loved the Giants to take a shot at him.
I'm happier with Brian Burns though.
So much.
I'm not upset.
You can't have enough pass rushers, right?
Yeah, that's true.
You brought him in here for 1 year.
Mantra, right? Remember, you never have too many pass rushers.
Yeah.
You remember that, dog? Remember when he took? I think it was Matthias Kiwanuka he drafted, and everybody's like, "What are you taking another pass rusher?" Was it?
JPP? I think it was JPP.
No, I don't think it was JPP. I want to say it was
maybe you're right. Maybe it was.
Might have been Kiwi. If I remember,
you can go back to 1984. Who did the Giants take? It's the last time they took a linebacker in the first round. Our friend Carl Banks, right?
Yeah.
3rd out of Michigan State. And Carl Banks always tells a story. When he got on the field, Harry Carson and Sarah said, "What are you going to do to get on the field, homeboy? We're pretty good at linebacker here." They took him 3rd overall. And he ended up being, which I think he's going to be in the Hall of Fame eventually. Should be now.
He should be.
But even back when I was growing up, you could never have enough defense. I know the game is different nowadays. I understand the rules are different. The game's played differently. At the end of the day, you still win that game at the line of scrimmage. You still win with defense, in my opinion. So, you can never have enough defense. Never.
Agree.
It's still one of the coolest things ever, by the way, was being able to have that talk with Carl Banks. It was great. I think that was the coolest thing ever. As me, as a Giants fan that's been on YouTube for however many years and grew up watching those guys, that was really cool to be able to have that discussion. That was awesome. So that's definitely one of the highlights I've had on YouTube.
And what a good group of guys from that 80. I'm surprised. I didn't cover the 80s team. I was in college at the time. But a lot of them, I've gotten to know a lot of them, and my goodness, the stories they tell.
Oh, I'm sure that was a wild bunch.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Pick up my book. You'll see some of the stories. Shameless plug there. All right. Roy Collins asks, what's everybody's true feelings on Dable? I like Dable. I have no reason not to like him. I think O.C. Umanura, when he was on my show a few weeks back, and we talked about that, I think he made a valid point. He said, we're in a time in this world where you got to watch how you talk to people. How you talk to them maybe 20 years ago is not how you can necessarily talk to them today. And another point that was made, this one I think was made by Ed Valentine, who was on my show this week. He said, it's one thing to yell at somebody and it's another thing to embarrass them. Mm-hmm. And that's where maybe Dable's got to differentiate a little bit, like Ed cited the throwing of the tablet when he was with Daniel Jones. Mm-hmm. And even though he maybe didn't mean to throw it at him, it was a bad look. So, Dable, I like the passion and the fire, but it has to be constructive. I think it can't be destructive where you're embarrassing people.
Yeah. I think Dable's he's learning. I mean, he's learning. He's never been a head coach before. He's 2 years in, and I think he will grow from last year. I think he will learn and he will adapt. Tom Coughlin learned. He was a head coach for years with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He had to adjust. Great coaches do it. I expect Dable to do that. I think he will adjust. I think he will improve. Yeah, I still have faith in Brian Dable. I think last year he was stubborn. We've talked about this several times early on in the year. He didn't adjust, I think, enough after all the injuries went down with Thomas and Barkley. I thought they needed to adjust their offensive strategy quicker than they did. They didn't. I thought his handling of Daniel Jones in that Dallas Cowboys game, the first game of the year, was awful, leaving him in the game down 40-0 with all the backups out in there. So there's things he needs to grow on. Like you go back to year one, I didn't agree with the Adoree Jackson decision as a punt returner. But overall, I think he's a good coach. I really do. I do think he's going to be the long-term answer here, and I'm happy he's the Giants head coach. And I think he's going to have this team competitive. And if you want to look at it from a positive standpoint last year, I think Dable did. I think it speaks volumes about a coach when the team has no reason to play hard late in the year, other than for their bank account. And Dable had this team competing and beating playoff teams when they had their third string quarterback in there. I think that speaks volumes of the coach, that the team didn't quit on him. And you look at what happened to Joe Judge. Joe Judge, the team flopped. It's a very similar scenario. The team flopped. They were down to their third string quarterback, very little to play for. They folded like a cheap suit. Dable, third string quarterback, we beat the Green Bay Packers. We competed with we should have beaten the Rams, and we beat the Eagles. These are teams that were Super Bowl threats out of the NFC late into the season. So I think that speaks volumes as Dable. So I haven't folded up on Dable. I still think Dable's going to be a damn good head coach for this team.
I love Dable. I think Brian Dable is a great coach. I think he had a bad year. And Patty, I said this at the beginning of last year. I don't know how much, again, you know, there really wasn't much to this, but I swear, I felt like there was a division in the locker room. I feel like Barkley was a distraction. For whatever reason, that whole contract thing, the way they didn't come to it, then they signed Daniel Jones last minute, then they tagged Barkley. Barkley was going to hold out, then he came back. I just felt like it was a distraction. I don't think this team was ever focused. Even in training camp, they didn't seem focused. He talked about how, last year was last year. We still have to go through a lot of adversity. It's almost like he knew. I don't know. It had a totally different feeling even before the season started. And then to come out and get demolished 40-0, and then to get killed in the first half in Arizona. It didn't look like the same team that was there in 2022 when the honeymoon phase is there and the Giants were winning those close games and they were building that confidence and they were, let's go for 2 against Tennessee and beat the team that was in the AFC Championship game the previous year, coming back to beat Baltimore, coming back to beat Green Bay. I feel like Dable is a really good coach. I don't know how much of the thing with Wink Martindale, I don't know any of that stuff. I'm not in that locker room. but I feel like he's a good coach that had a bad year. And I feel like because they accelerated that process, there was more expected of him. He was the coach of the year. Giants fans expect him more. Right?
And look,
a lot of pressure.
And let's be honest here. Losing takes its toll on everybody because now the pressure's on you. Figure out what's wrong. We got to figure out what's wrong. So now you start becoming a little maybe more short-tempered. You become a little bit more demanding. Losing stinks. I can't, I laugh when fans says, oh, you in the media, you guys love it when the team is losing because you smell blood in the water. I hate it. I hate losing. I hate going to my social media accounts every, the day after a game or right after a game after they've gotten their doors blown off. And I see all the distressed Giant fans who are, yelling at me like I had something to do with the loss. And I get it. They're venting. But it's so much easier to do my job when the team is winning. So I get it. I can just imagine how difficult it is for the coaches when the team is not winning. Now they've got to do more work. They've got to do more corrections. They can't get, a lot of people don't realize this, but usually what the Giants do on the day after, if they don't get a victory Monday, they come in and they do a corrections practice. Well, the more corrections they got to make, that's less time that they can maybe start, thinking ahead to what they got to do for the following week, So you want them to win. You want them to win. And it's not, the pressure again becomes on the coaches. So
I think Chris made a great point too, that the team fought for him. The team fought. And again, I talked about winning builds culture, a couple of years ago. And remember when the Giants were winning, there was not that Gronkowski was going to come out of retirement, but he's like, I would come back and play. You heard players say, I want to play for Coach Dable.
Yep.
So it's different when you're winning. Chris, they flopped under Joe Judge. They flopped under Ben McAdoo. That team quit in 2017. It quit. Yeah. They quit against the Rams. They lost 51-13, whatever that was. I watched them give up a 50-yard screen pass touchdown on 3rd and 23 where they just stopped running after. They quit. They quit on him. They quit on Judge. They didn't quit on Dable.
No.
And because they didn't quit, that agitated some Giants fans. Oh, my God, we blew the tank, and now we're not going to get a quarterback. And now freaking Tommy DeVito, that son of a bitch, he won games. What jobs were on the line. These guys are professionals. You can't tell Tommy DeVito, who's a 3rd-string quarterback, who has an opportunity that he probably never thought he'd have, to go, you know what, kid? Nobody expects you to win. Go out there and suck. Don't try. Don't try. We're going to do to you what we did in the Jets game. Just turn and hand the damn ball off every time. Just turn and hand the ball. We don't want you to throw the ball. We don't even want you to try. We want them to lose the game. That's not the way. Let's not even practice, guys, because we're tanking. So what the hell's the point of practicing? You might get hurt. Then who cares? We don't need to get better. We want to lose. Nobody's going into the locker room. Nobody's going to work going, let's tank. It's nice for us fans to go, oh, God, we need to lose this game so we can get the guy we want. I understand that.
I don't get it. I mean, why, even if you get the number 1 draft pick, it doesn't mean that the guy is going to be a home run. It increases your odds, but you really want to go through that? I'd want to see competitive football myself.
Carl Banks. Patty, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, as a former athlete, I played, softball in high school. It killed me when we lost because I can think of all the times when, we would practice and I would be like, oh, we got to practice on a Saturday and I'd rather be sleeping in or going to the mall or doing something else. And we'd practice and then we go out and we play during the week and we'd lose. And I'd be like, why'd we practice? We lost. We were bad. And it would just make me so mad. And it would make me more determined to come back the following practice and just get better so that we wouldn't lose again, so that we would get the reward of the day off or the Saturday off. I just don't understand this tanking mentality.
Carl Banks said, if you have that mentality, he said, then as soon as something starts going bad, you're going to do that again. Like, that's a losing mentality. You go, the Giants start 0-3, you're, let's tank. Let's just throw away the season. Like, so he pretty much saying every time things go bad, you're just going to give up. And as a fan, listen, we have had a difficult decade of Giants football, and I understand the frustration. I'm right there with Giants fans. Nobody's more frustrated than me. Okay, nobody. I hate watching them lose. It's aggravating. It's frustrating. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of being made fun of. I'm sick of the Eagles running over us. I'm sick of the Cowboys running over us. I get sick to my stomach watching it happen. I hate it. But those guys, you don't want them to quit. You want them to give it their all, because those are the guys you're going to keep. Those are the guys that you want to build with. Those guys that when the chips are down, they are giving their all. Those are the guys, those are winners. That's a winning mentality. Those are the guys I want on my team. I don't want the quitters, because you're not going to win if you quit. So I want those guys that are going to go out there and give it their all.
Yeah.
All the time.
And a large portion of the people that are screaming to tank, like by week 7, they'd be the same people if the team quit on Brian Daboll and won 2 games that would be calling for Brian Daboll's job.
Exactly.
You can't have it both ways.
No,
you can't have it both ways. And like Daboll has to try. Daboll has to try to win football games. The players on the team have to try to win football games. It's why I never get upset if my team wins. It's out of my control, and I understand that they're doing what they have to do to try to keep their jobs the following year. So it is what it is. It's I'm never gonna kill a team because they didn't lose football games. Giants fans did that in 2021. And we got Andrew Thomas instead of Chase Young, who just signed a deal for 1 year, $13 million for another team. So you never know how it's going to pan out. It is what it is. I still think we got the right coach, and eventually I think we're going to have a really good football team because of it. So that's how I feel. I don't think that there's a golden quarterback that's going to come in here. It's going to just fix everything by himself.
No.
Yeah. And to your point, this question from Eddie Vasquez, do you think this year is a wash? I think they're gonna be better. I don't think they're going to be a Super Bowl team. Do I think they'll be a playoff team? That's to be determined. But I think, you're going to see somewhat of an improvement. How much I can't say, because I've got to see what the final roster looks like. And obviously the injury history is going to, factor into the equation, because if God forbid, knock on wood, and I'm knocking on wood as I say this, if God forbid, Andrew Thomas gets hurt again, or Brian Burns gets hurt, or Thibodeau or whatever, then again, your season's going to go down the toilet anyway. So it's too soon to say how good this team will be. On paper, they look improved, but you know what? We've been saying that now for the last how many off seasons, only to have our hearts broken. So championships are not won right now in March and April. They're won in the fall. And that's what we really need to see. And, we'll get our eyes on it. I'll get my eyes on the team, obviously, during OTAs and the mini camps and all that stuff. And I'll have all that for you guys. But right now, I think the goal is to get better than you were last year, because last year was just an absolute disaster.
Yeah, without question. Again, this ain't a Super Bowl team, but you want to see them build. And I think they're building the right way. It was not difficult to see Saquon Barkley leave. It was difficult to see him go to the Eagles. It was difficult for me to watch McKinney go because he's my favorite Giant, but I'm happy for him. I'm not going to, he went to Green Bay. I'm okay with that. I understand. Philadelphia, and of course I made a video on this, and, when you make a video on YouTube, this is just a little hint for some people that might be content creators. They always say to me, what do you do? You need to make a catchy title. Like, you want somebody to click. You do this for clicks. Yes. Duh. You're on social media. Yes. Everything on social media is for somebody to view it. I have never understood you just did that for click. You just do this on Twitter for engagement. Well, what? If you don't want engagement, why would you post on Twitter? If you don't want somebody to watch your video, why would you make the video public? So I made a video that said he chose the Eagles over the Giants. And everybody just assumed that was about Saquon Barkley. Had nothing to do with Saquon. I already spoke my piece. It had to do with Bryce Huff. And my point being was, and this was actually complimentary towards the Eagles, that the Giants have to get back to a point where they're competing every year, because then you're going to draw top name free agents. The Eagles could also afford to pay Barkley because they are a complete team, because they can afford to pay luxury positions. We aren't there. We can't pay a safety $16 million a year. We can't pay a running back, whatever he got, $13 million a year, upwards of $15 million, depending on incentives. We can't do it. If we were in the same situation, like Chris mentioned Minnesota earlier, if we were that team with a quarterback, obviously they have their just quarterback. Well, we had a team like that with a good quarterback, or like the Eagles do, or the Cowboys, they're competing every year, the 49ers. you can afford to pay those positions. The 49ers they can afford to pay Christian McCaffrey because they're loaded everywhere else. So they can put that money there. We couldn't give Christian McCaffrey $16 million. We could, but we wouldn't win. So that was really the point. We just can't afford those guys. We have to put money in the trenches. And I think letting Barkley walk, and I think letting McKinney walk. I think Joe Shane said we have to strip this down and we have to start building from the inside out, which is exactly how you want to build a football team. I like what he did in free agency this year. I think he's doing it the correct way. And it's going to take time, and I know it's like, oh my God, how many years we were in year 12 of the rebuild. I hear you, Giants fans, but it's going to take time. But if you build it properly, it'll be worth it in the end, because you won't just have an outlier year where you make the playoffs, then you win 6 games the next year. You'll be competing every year if you build it properly. I still believe in this front office. I believe in the coaching staff, and I think the Giants will get better, but it's going to take some time.
By the way, Dog, I think we got to check you. Did you actually say that you complimented the Eagles?
I did. I had to give them listen, I even said that. I said at the very beginning of the video, I go, I'm a Giants fan, so I'm going to talk my smack. Without question. I know how to trigger Eagle fans, and I actually did trigger a couple because I told them we kicked their ass the last week of the season. Like, oh, you guys are not. See, that's all I had to do is say we beat the holy hell out of you. Tapped out. Look, you haven't beat us in 10 years. But exactly, I know how to trigger. I know how to trigger Cowboys fans. But one thing that I pride myself
I know how to trigger Cowboys fans. All you got to do is break out a VCR.
I know it. But I try to be, as unbiased as possible. I try to be truthful when I have to be. I don't like doing it, but that is why the Eagles can pay these guys, because they are a team that was 2 years removed from playing the Super Bowl. They can afford to pay Barkley. We couldn't. I'm hoping that in a couple of years we can start to afford to pay the luxury positions, because we have built in the trenches. We have our quarterback. Only time will tell, but I did like what Joe Shane did this offseason so far. And now we got to hope that he knocks this draft out of the park.
Yeah. All right, guys. Got to run one more commercial break. When we come back, I see some more questions sitting there. If I missed your questions, just keep popping them in the chat box. We'll get them. I run this last commercial, and we'll be right back with you. Hey, Giant fans. Say goodbye to busted brackets, because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. Hey, Giant fans, keep up with the comings and goings this offseason and continue the conversation as a member of the Locked On Giants Blue Crew community. Get exclusive content and opportunities delivered directly to your phone. Plus, members can keep the conversation going with me in one-on-one conversations via text. Try it for free for 14 days, and if you like it, do nothing and continue for just $4.99 per month after your trial period ends. If you don't like it, simply text STOP before your 14-day trial period ends, and you'll owe absolutely nothing. For more information or to register, visit joinsubtext.com/LockedOnNYGiants. That's joinsubtext.com/LockedOnNYGiants. All right, everybody. Welcome back to Locked On Giants Live. Traina, Tainah, Dog, and I'm going to just post that banner for the Blue Crew community. Speaking of which, Blue Crew community members, if you're here, get your questions in. I'll do another video for you guys tomorrow. The usual Q&A. You guys know what to do, so get your questions in. I'm happy to do that. Speaking of questions, I had one marked. I think it was from Mickey, and Mickey had asked, and I apologize, Mickey. The chat is kind of scrolling through quickly, but I think it was Mickey who asked if there were any special plans for the Giants' 100th anniversary. I know they're working on something. I don't know what they are. We're going to
win a Super Bowl.
That would be nice. Wouldn't that be nice? Really? But I know they're working on something. I know they're going to have a commemorative patch, but I haven't seen anything. we haven't been in the building since, the January. So once we get back in the building, I'll be able to find out a little bit more about that. And, I'll see what I can find out for you. But I do think there's going to be a patch, and there'll probably be all kinds of different programs and stuff like that. I know they're working on all that stuff. So as I get the news, I'll pass it along to you as always. So, all right, let's see what else we have here. All right, Amazing Guy asked, do you think people are not taking the O-line seriously again? I really think the Giants should still draft a guard in the second round. I don't know it's that they're not taking the O-line seriously, but look, they've added Illuminar, they've added Runyon, they've added the two guys on the Stinney and Schlotman. Who else? I want to say they added another guy.
They just added the dude from the Lions yesterday.
The dude from the Lions. So that's 5 guys they've added. How many more you want them to add? And then they've got Azudu and Marcus McKeithen back. So that's 7 guys in reserve. How many more do you want them to add?
Listen, they clearly need to continue to take it seriously. But what else could he have done? Like you said, he changed the offensive line coach. He brought in 5 or 6 new offensive linemen. Maybe not all of them make the squad. We'll see. I'm sure some of them will be competing for back end of the roster spots. But yeah, I can't imagine they're going to draft an offensive lineman early after everything that they did. Is it possible? I suppose. And I do think we'll still probably draft 1 offensive lineman at this point in this year's draft. But one thing you can't argue about with Joe Schoen, he is definitely taking the offensive line very seriously, even more seriously than I may have thought when he took the job because when you looked at Buffalo's draft history, they didn't have a history of drafting offensive linemen very early while he was there as the assistant general manager. He's done that in spades. He took Evan Neal in the first, took JMS in the second, he took Azudu in the third, McKeithen in the fifth. He signed 2 linemen. Like, what more could you want? Obviously you want the guys to play well, but in terms of
coaching,
his focus, in terms of what, he's done everything he can in terms of putting resources into the line.
Yeah, I agree. And at some point you got to ask yourself, how much did coaching play into the factor? And that's why I think Bobby Johnson is not here, and they brought in Carmen Brasillo, because they probably realized, hey, it wasn't just one guy not developing. It was a bunch of guys that were struggling to develop. So now maybe we've got to just get a different voice in here. And that's what they did with bringing in Brasillo. All right. Scott Young, thank you for reposting this, Scott. I did miss it. What's your take on possibly the change with the kickoffs rule? Oh man, at this point, how much longer till they make this game flag football? Seriously, I get player safety and all that stuff, but I miss the old days. I'm sorry. I miss the old days, the 80s, the 70s. I remember football in the 70s, the 80s even. I don't know.
It just doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel natural anymore, the kickoff. With all the alterations
it really
that
doesn't.
they've made. It's almost like just get rid of it. It's like, you've taken it out. You're never going to see another Devin Hester again, ever.
Right.
No.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel natural. And I know they're trying to bring it back a little bit, and they're trying to kind of meet in the middle. So now you won't have those head-on collisions in terms of the force that you had back then, because they can't run it. What's the rule? Like they can't run or something until the ball. I don't even remember the rule.
I don't even remember. I know they got rid of the wedge rule a few years ago. I know they have the fair catch rule. I think that they're having the meetings next week, so they're going to vote on a bunch of new rule changes. And also, I believe that rule last year where you could call a fair catch if you were within the 25-yard line. I think they're going to vote on whether to permanently keep that. Look, just get rid of the kickoff if that's what you're
start of the 25.
Why have it? I just don't get it. I know the special teams coaches hated it. The players didn't care for it. I don't know. Sometimes I think, you can tinker with something a little too much and then it kind of just waters everything down. But what do I know? I'm just a hack. So,
Yeah.
All right. Rob from downtown says, I've seen a post going around about DJ not passing a physical before the year starts and possible medical retirement due to the neck. Rob, I don't think I've seen that. I don't think I've heard that. I know Daniel Jones, from what I've heard, has been ahead of schedule. Now, could he pass the physical today? No. Does he need to pass the physical today? No. So I think it's a little premature to say that, oh, he's going to have to retire due to medical concerns. Just my take here, because look, this, they don't report to training camp till what, July, the end of July. We got some time yet. So I think they're going to let him continue to, to rehab. This talk about him potentially being ready for the OTAs, that I would be surprised. I mean, maybe he'll do like individual stuff, but any kind of teamwork or anything like that.
I mean, everything they've said.
No contact, but I question that. What do you need to rush this kid back on the field for?
Yeah, everything they've said, he's ahead of schedule. I mean, I guess we'll see when the time comes, but people were doing the same thing a few years ago. I remember they used to zoom in on a picture that Daniel Jones had some kind of scar on his neck, and they're like, oh, he had. So I think people read way too much into this. Let's see what happens at the start of the year. I do think Daniel Jones is going to be the starting quarterback.
I think people want him to retire.
Yeah. I think that's what it is. I think people want him to
that's what it is.
Yeah.
They want him to retire.
Yeah. All right. One of my everyday, my Blue Crew community members, actually, Ken Peters asks, hey, Patty, do you think the Vikings would swap pick 6 for 11 and Addison?
We talked about this last night, and Chris made a great point. Minnesota doesn't have a quarterback. They're probably going to trade up to get J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah.
Why would you take the best receiver in football away from a rookie quarterback?
Well, he said Addison, but still a very good receiver.
Addison.
You just drafted in the first. Yeah, in our chat, somebody brought up.
That was Jefferson. That's right.
Jefferson. But yeah, that's the way I look at it. If you're trading up for J.J. McCarthy, why would you give up a great wide receiver? Like, doesn't add up to me. I don't see why they would do that. And if you're talking about Addison specifically, he's year 2 on a rookie deal. There's really no incentive at all to trade him. So it just doesn't make sense to me.
No, it doesn't make sense to me either. I mean, if would I do it? I would think about it, but I don't think the Vikings would do it. I really don't, because like you said, it doesn't make sense.
11 and 23 would make more sense than
that I could live with. I think, even if it means costing me one of those top 3 receivers, which I desperately would like to see them get one of those guys. I'm just so hoping for Roma Dunze, but we'll see if that's what they agree on. But all right, Red Fox, do you think Belton and Owens are ready to step up? Belton, I think right now is probably the incumbent to take over for McKinney, but he's going to have to compete because they brought in Jalen Mills, obviously. Owens, I don't know, to be honest with you. He didn't get a whole lot of play time on defense last year, which would suggest to me that he had some development to go. I got to see him in the spring because I remember writing in training camp that I thought at times he looked lost. So, I don't know how far he's come along, but I don't know that he's ready for a starting job. Let's put it that way. Belton, I think, is a little closer to a starting job. I like his physicality. I like his instincts. I think, somehow he gets himself around the ball, which is, you just can't teach that. What I'm concerned with Belton is does he have the size and the durability is what I'd like to see with him.
Yeah, I thought he played well the last month of the season. We used to have another safety that always had his nose around the ball. It seemed like he got a turnover all the time. Was oh God, his name just escaped me. It just freaking escaped me.
What time period?
Like Stevie Brown. That's who it was.
Oh,
Stevie Brown. Okay, yeah. Stevie Brown always seemed to be around the football, and then he was gone before you know it. But I think Belton's got to do some work, but I think he's the favorite to go in as a starting safety. And, I thought he showed signs of playing well, but this is a different defensive scheme. We'll see what they have in store for him. But like Patty, I mean, you can't really teach being around the ball. That's just something you either have or you don't. I don't know if that's a skill that you can actually teach. So I like that about him. He has had some injury issues, as it seems like every one of our players has. But yeah, I think Belton's going to have to step up, honestly.
Okay. All right. Stanley Frederic has been asking this question on, I think, a few times. What are your thoughts on Quindian Mitchell, the cornerback out of Toledo? Again, I haven't done Toledo. I haven't looked at the cornerbacks from that group. Over at Giants Country, I've got a couple guys who are doing stuff, and I don't think they've gotten to Toledo, so I don't really have an opinion on him. I don't know much about him, Stanley. I think I did pick a cornerback in my mock draft, and I can't remember who the heck it was, but it was on Giants Country a while ago. Actually, it was on Giant Country on Monday, and I don't remember who it is. But yeah, when it comes to the draft prospects, Stanley, just to, disclaimer, even though I'm doing work on some of these guys, I still have to keep up with the main roster. So maybe I don't do as much work on them as I should. But when it comes to the mock drafts and stuff, that's when I really kind of dive in and stuff. So I don't have an opinion. But Chris, Dog, do you have a thought on the?
I've watched him a bit. He's a first round prospect. I could see the Giants if they were to trade down, they certainly wouldn't take him at 6. If they were to trade down, I could certainly see them taking him. He's supposed to go in like that 10 to 15 range from everything that I've read. I've watched some highlights on him. I haven't done extensive work on the guy. I've watched some highlights on him, but yeah, he's supposed to be one of the better cornerbacks in this year's draft class. I think it's a possibility. If the Giants were to trade down and get 11 and 23, it's possible. I think he could be one of the 5 or 6 guys that you consider with that 11th pick.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, would you go cornerback or would you go receiver? I mean, I know they need
depends
one,
who's there.
If they sign White, then that takes away the urgency for a cornerback in the draft.
If you sign White, I suppose, but still, you still need a long-term answer there. So I wouldn't shy away from it if you thought he was the best player.
Okay, I can live with that. But yeah, I'll go back and I'll look some more on these guys. I mean, I've been writing down names as you bring them up. But just again, I've been so into the veterans that they acquire. It's just not enough hours in the day. But I am trying to keep up with all the draft stuff as best as I can. So anyway,
there is.
Brian, give us the 4-on-1 on Bryce Ford Wheaton and Beavers. Well, Beavers is going to compete next year for a spot, obviously. They brought him up from the practice squad late last season. So Beavers, takes some time to get that knee together. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm trying to remember Beavers just had a clean tear or if he had other damage to that knee, which could explain why it took him so long to come back. I think he might have had some other damage. But as far as Bryce Ford Wheaton, I don't know what the status is with him. Again, we haven't been in the building since the end of the season in January. We'll get some answers. I think we're next in the building next month for Shane's draft preview presser, in which he says nothing, but we still have to go and cover it. So, we can certainly see what's going on there. I hope we get the assistant coaches too at that point, but I don't think we will. I'd like to talk to some of the assistant coaches and kind of get a feel for, things, but I think we'll see them probably in June. But Brian, hold up those questions for me, like maybe later on in the year, and we can circle back and I can give you the 4-1-1 as I get more information on those guys.
Shane's pressers for you must be Gettleman's pressers were much more exciting for you because he used to tell you guys. He used to tell you guys everything.
You know what? I'll say this about Shane. I truly believe that he tries to be as helpful as he can. Now, obviously, he's not going to tell everybody everything.
Nor
and
should
actually,
he.
It's funny. Some of the stuff he tells you off the podium, which is technically off the record, that stuff is valuable. Like he said something, and I can't repeat it.
After the show,
after the presser, in January, he was talking to a group of us, and I was like, something. So I filed it away in the back of my head, something related to the draft and what they might do and what they were thinking. And I said, okay, something. I'll keep that in the back of my head. So if you see something that looks weird, you'll know. But seriously, I mean, he's a good guy. Look, Shane told everybody that they were going to add a veteran quarterback. They did. He's been upfront, and you also look at how he words things. And I keep pointing this out with Daniel Jones. Not Daniel Jones will start. The expectation is that he will start. Well, I expect to live to be 100. Doesn't mean I'm going to live to be 100. So just little verbal cues like that kind of give you tip-offs if you know how to read them. So just a little tip for you guys next time you read or listen to his pressers. So, all right. Let's see. I see Viking Jerome asked about JJ McCarthy. We kind of covered that a little bit. I don't think McCarthy's going to be there. And I know, Dog
I
feels
think he's
that,
going to be there. I think he's going to
Yeah,
be with you,
Mike.
Viking Jerome.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's where I think he's
I
gonna
don't
be.
think, I mean, they've done a lot of work on him. I don't know that they get him. I'd be surprised. I really would. But we'll see. I mean, obviously, I know they like him. I think I think there's 4 quarterbacks that they really did a lot of work on. I know he's one of them. I think Drake May's the other, and I forget who the other 2 are, but
You figure Caleb and Jaden Daniels
I
probably,
don't
right?
know. I don't think they did as much on Caleb because they know that
They
Caleb's
know they're
going to
not
the
getting him.
Bears.
Yeah.
They should have done it on Michael
I
Penix.
want to say Bo Nix is one.
No, don't say that name.
I don't remember that.
Don't say that
I
name,
know
'cause that-
Drake May and McCarthy. I know are two guys that they've done a lot of work on in the quarterbacks. There's 2 others, and I can't remember who they are. I
should
want
be
to say
Michael
Bo Nix.
Penix. They should have done their work on Michael Penix.
I don't remember. I don't
Sure.
remember. And oh, by the way, I mentioned a defensive back. TG Tampa was the guy I think I picked. So, all right, let's see what we got. Okay, here's one from JDJ. Do you think by Shane not showing up on JJ's pro days, continuing misdirection or smokescreen? What do I always say, guys? 'Tis the season for lion. It's lion season. Could be.
I've said it all along, and you get a lot of people on Twitter that give me pushback when I say it, but I'm always going to speak my mind. I know it's like the popular thing right now to say that they need to go quarterback. I do think, and I definitely think Shane likes McCarthy, but do I think Shane might be overselling it a bit to try to get the Minnesota Vikings to trade up ahead of us to ensure we get the best prospect possible that's not a quarterback? I do. I don't think Shane's going to trade up for him, and I think he knows Minnesota is going to, and I do. I think there's some gamesmanship there by Joe Shane. I really do.
Yeah.
If Minnesota traded up with Arizona, say,
Yeah.
do you think Joe Shane works something out with Los Angeles and takes Marvin Harrison Jr.? Or do you think he just sits there at 6 and says, I'll just take whoever falls to me?
I mean, does Los Angeles even want to trade back at that point?
I know it's the tough.
They need a receiver just as much as we do.
I mean, I don't know how they're grading them, but I would think the grades would be kind of similar on Harrison Jr. and Adunze, wouldn't you?
Or neighbors too.
I think Marvin Harrison is better than both of those guys. I don't think it's a massive drop though, but I do think he's clearly the best overall receiver coming out of this draft.
And just that, with grades, if it's just a matter of a decimal point here and there,
yeah, they wouldn't trade.
Then at that point, it's like,
doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. That's when, just to give you guys like some background when it comes to the draft, if they have like a cluster of guys that have similar grades, but they're only off by like a decimal point, that's when need factors in. So they'll pick from the cluster of needs. But if it's, you got one guy that has the higher grade than everybody else, that's where, you go with the value, you know what I mean? So
I think that's what they did in 2022 when they saw the lineman fall. They go, well, we're taking Kayvon here because he's not getting us to a 7, but we're going to get Cross or Neal, and we'll take either one of those. I feel like those two are right together. And they said, I don't care. We'll take either one of those, but Kayvon's not going to get to us. So you better take him.
Shane actually said that right after the draft. He said pretty much those exact words, which is what we said. That he said when the way that the draft transpired, they thought the tackles were grouping together, and he actually said that verbatim. So that was I remember we said that during the draft, and Shane actually confirmed that. That was exact.
Do you get a sense that they prefer one of the wide receivers over the other one?
That's, I've been saying that all along, and I think I keep saying Rome Odunze for the reasons that I mentioned earlier on the show, which for those of you just joining us, the catch radius, the contested catch rate,
size.
I mean, this kid, right, he doesn't have, world-class speed, but he's fast enough, and he can take that receiver group, open things up for them, and he's a nice big target for whoever the quarterback is. So I do kind of get the sense that that's the guy that they maybe have a higher grade on. I mean, I haven't seen their draft board. I'm just guessing here, but there's a reason why I keep saying Odunze, and that's the feeling I get, the vibe that I pick up. So
You really think they like a dude? I think they like Neighbors the most, including Marvin Harrison. I think Neighbors is their guy. That's
okay,
my hot
we'll
take.
see. I mean,
I
look,
think
it wouldn't be
Neighbors
the first time I'm wrong.
I
Won't be
think
the
he fits
last.
the offense so well. I'd be thrilled with any of them, though. I'd be thrilled with a Dunze, Marvin. I think Neighbors is their guy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just get a number one receiver. I'd be happy with any of them.
Yeah, agreed. I've said that Rome Odunze is because I don't expect to get Marvin Harrison. But I've said all along, Rome Odunze is my 1A to Neighbors 1B. I'm thrilled if we get either one of them. I don't care. I just prefer Odunze. I've seen more of Odunze play, and again, it's more.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I'm still down in here.
I just like he's getting better. I mean, I've actually done film work on him, and I'm like, whew, I could just picture him in this offense, and it just makes me, excited about the possibility of him being in the offense. So
He's just a bigger target, and
he is the bigger target, and like I said, the contested catch, he's everything Kenny Golladay should have been,
right,
and then some.
And then some, because his work ethic's better than guys.
Oh, much better, absolutely, and that's don't discount that. That's a feather in his cap.
Yeah,
You don't think that Shane and Dable and any head coach GM combination aren't looking at that and saying, God, I got to have that on my team. I want 53 of that on my team.
Yeah.
So don't discount that. All right. Nikki Sav asks, what are you hearing on the Pats? Will they take a quarterback?
They have to.
They have to, I would think.
They don't have one, yeah.
They don't. I thought they were going to try to get one in free agency, and they haven't. So I don't think so.
Didn't they add Brissett? Maybe I'm wrong. I thought they added Brissett.
They did add Brissett, but I mean, when Brissett is on a 2-year deal, so Brissett can be their transition guy. I would think. I don't think that's the long time answer, but yeah, I think they have to. I mean, look, this is a deep class. If you need a quarterback, this is the year to get one, and there are a lot of teams that need quarterbacks. So any team that needs a quarterback and passes on it, you got to seriously ask, what are they doing? That's how I feel at any rate.
I'd be stunned, guys. I'd be stunned if the Patriots don't take a quarterback. I'd
be shocked.
Yeah, I'd be stunned.
Yeah,
unless they would take one in the second round. But you don't know how often you're picking top three, and in this quarterback class, there's no way they can go. Yeah, we'll trade out of that and we'll take Bo Nix in the second round, or Michael Penix or what. I don't. If you like a quarterback, you can't trade back and hope the guy falls there. I don't see the Patriots going that route.
All right, here's an interesting.
Stranger things have happened. I mean, who knows? You never know. That's why I say all the time, we got to watch us on draft night, because reactions are always like, what?
I wish I could watch you guys on draft nights, but I'm going to be in the press room, and I'm I can just see it, especially if you guys do your wee. Like you did last year. Whenever I tell you guys, confession, if ever I need a laugh, I always watch your reaction to last year's draft, and it just cracks me up. I am literally.
We were happy last year.
We were happy.
I literally end up on the floor laughing, and whenever I need it, my husband actually knows. He goes, "Oh, you're watching Bad Dog and Chris again." I said, "Yeah, exactly." So I thank you for that, because there are days when I definitely need the laugh.
Listen, we need a laugh too. So sometimes that's the best thing we can do is provide a laugh, because our team has been so laughable to other people, not to us. It's like a disaster, but if we can make somebody laugh, that's good.
I thank you for that. I wish I could make you guys laugh, but I'm kind of, there's only so much I can do in the press room. But anyway, so Michael Falkowitz, I hope I said that right. Do you think they select Brendan Rice later in the draft? I wouldn't be surprised if he was somebody they looked at when they went out to that pro day. Everybody thinks, oh, they're looking at the quarterback. They're looking at other players too. Mm-hmm. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, and I did a list. I did a compilation of, meetings and stuff. And I think that he was somebody that they met with, I want to say at the combine, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the list in front of me, and I don't, I unfortunately I can't get at it, but I think he was someone that they certainly looked at.
Well, I mean, he's got good genes.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get your dad's the greatest receiver in the history of football.
Yeah.
Maybe some consider the greatest player in the history of football. So he's got that going for him. Now, that doesn't mean anything because, sometimes
Or Harrison.
Yeah,
True.
Marvin Harrison has good genes too.
Yeah.
I mean, God, by the way, I feel so old because I can remember watching Jerry Rice and Marvin Harrison Sr.
Yeah, tell me about it.
And I remember when those
I remember it too.
young men were they were babies.
Yeah.
Jerry
Rice played till he was like he played till he was like 45, that guy.
He was
it's funny because Brandon Jacobs' oldest son, Braden, is now, I guess he's going to start college next year. And I was talking with him not too long ago. I said, good Lord. I said, I remember when he was in his stroller and Kim, his wife, was pushing him around in his stroller. I said, when did this kid grow up? He goes, he's bigger than me now.
He's a lineman, right?
He's huge.
He's huge.
I think he's an offensive lineman, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. He's like 6'7".
Think about it. I mean, we drafted Brandon Jacobs just about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
That's how fast that's going by.
By the way, Brandon still looks like he could suit up. I
was waiting for him to suit up. Yeah,
his knees are shot though. That's the problem. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, he's still got that fire. And I'm like, go in the locker room and kick some butt there, because he was a really good and underrated leader. And just, man, they don't make it like that, like him anymore. I gotta tell you.
And Plaxico's son he's playing at Notre Dame.
Who's that?
Plaxico Burress.
Yes, he just committed to Notre Dame. You're right.
Yeah. So,
I remember when he was a bit. Oh my God, man.
One of my favorite Brandon Jacobs moments. I always love the game against Cowboys when he scores a touchdown, and just chucks the football off the play clock. It makes me laugh every time.
He hated the Cowboys.
I know. You can hear the official come up to him and go, "Don't do that again." You can very clearly hear the official go, "Don't do that again." Troy Aikman starts laughing in the booth because Brandon they hated him. They could not. Justin Tuck hated the Cowboy. They hated.
A lot of people hated. Well, that goes back to when Jerry Jones and the arrogance that franchise can sometimes show.
The tickets.
And by the way, speaking of which, remember how they said they were going to be all in on free agency, or at least that was the sentiment coming out of Dallas?
They had $2 million in cap. They couldn't do anything. They had $2 million and nothing.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, the Eagles print money. They still have $33 million of cap space.
I'll tell you what. I tip my hat to Howie Roseman and how he constructs some of these contracts. It's
amazing.
Brilliant.
It's amazing.
You guys know that that I'm into the cap, and so I go and I look at some of these contracts and how they're constructed, and my gosh, they are brilliant.
He knows what he's doing.
He definitely knows what he's doing. I mean, Shane's getting better and better at it as well, but Howie Roseman right now, he's running the master class as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, so endless money over there.
Oh, yeah, and you want to be careful. You don't want to keep printing up money because eventually you have to pay the piper.
It's going to catch up, but we've been saying that for a few years and they ain't got them yet. So
yeah, definitely. All right, I'm looking to see if we have any other questions because, Dog, I know you've got a dash. I know you've got the Lakers coming up.
Yes.
Let me see if we got anything else real quick. No, I don't see anything else. All right. So, folks, if I missed any of your questions, you know what to do. Just pop them in the comments section. We can always go. I'll check them tomorrow. My Blue Crew community members, pop your questions into the form that we have, and I will do a video with you guys tomorrow. So that'll do it for us. I mean, I guess next time we talk, hopefully it'll be just before the draft. We'll have some more information. We'll get psyched up and pumped up. But this was a good chat, recapping free agency, talking about where things kind of stand right now. Guys, can't thank you enough for coming on board with me.
Always love coming on. Really looking forward to previewing the draft with you again as we get a lot closer. I had a lot of fun. And Patty, I got to ask you another question before we go. Last week you gave me 100%. Right now, you got to pick. Give me where you stand. Quarterback versus the wide receiver. Give me your percentage here.
In round one?
In round one? First round.
I'm going to say Wide receiver, I'm going to go 99.9%.
Patty doesn't mess around. She doesn't go. Patty, there's no, Patty's
I
right.
have no, I mean, unless I'm totally misreading the tea leaves, which
Yeah.
is possible, because I've been wrong before. I will be wrong again. But unless I'm misreading the tea leaves, I think it's going to be a receiver. Now, I do think they want a quarterback, but I'm thinking that maybe there's not going to be someone that drops down to them.
So
could they trade up?
Based on what you have said over the last 2 shows we've done, we're going wide receiver in the first and quarterback in the second, because you told me 100% quarterback first or second round.
Well, I'm going 99.9.
She's leaving a little out.
I mean, I still think it makes sense. Now, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It happens.
That's what
happens, of course.
I mean, not everybody hits it. I mean,
that's why it's always funny. That's why it's always funny. You do these things and be like, oh, that aged like milk. I mean, my God, nobody's perfect. I mean, you do enough takes, you're going to get somewhere. You're going to get. Nobody ever comes back and goes, wow, this aged like wine. Yeah. But they want to tell you when you miss.
Yeah.
Without question. Nobody goes back to me 4 years ago, 5 years ago. No, I guess it's 6 years ago now. And says, boy, bad dog, you were totally right on Sam Darnold. He did stink. No, he does that. But
I hear you.
But Jalen Hurts, that aged like milk, bad dog. Well, I don't know that it did, because he didn't look that good last year.
Yeah, I still have people coming back on things that I said years ago that maybe were true at the time that turned out to go the opposite direction. And I'm like, show me what you said back then. It's like,
it's easy when there's nothing in print or on video. If I cared, Patty, about being wrong, I would get rid of all the videos where I was wrong.
It happens.
I make fun of myself for some of my terrible takes I've had. That one's bad.
I mean, contrary to popular belief, folks, if I'm wrong, it doesn't mean that I'm a bad reporter. It just means that maybe I didn't consider an angle or a possibility that was right there.
You're human.
And it happens. And I'm human. That's why they put erasers on the ends of pencils.
I'm with you, by the way, Patty.
Why they make whiteout too, right? Why do they make whiteout?
Exactly. And why they have the delete key on keyboards.
Correct.
But I think it's a receiver. I'm not, nothing I have heard or picked up has me convinced that it's going to go a different way. Now, I could be wrong, but
my dream could come true. Then you're saying, Odunze, Penix,
dude. If they take a Odunze, assuming they don't rush us into the presser conference, I'll pop on your channel to give you. Matter of fact, I might take my laptop in with me, and I might pop on the channel anyway.
More than welcome.
I love it.
I mean, usually after they make the pick, they take us right into the auditorium for the pressers. But
we'll be live the whole night, so swing by.
Yeah, we'd be live all night. We'd live the whole first round.
Yeah, so I may pop in.
Patty, take us into the presser with you. What the hell?
I could do that. I could take you into the presser. Why not? So, all right, guys. Thanks again for joining us. Make sure you tune in next week for Locked On Giants. I've got a guest lined up. And of course, we're going to keep on doing 5 days a week because there is no off season here on the Locked On Giants podcast. For the Tainah, for the dog, this is Traina signing off. Have a good one, everybody.
Peace.